Let me start with the title here. And this title comes from my own sort of wrestling with where people's aspirations are, where their sort of sense of, hey, I want to be like this, but then where their actions actually don't match up. It's not congruent with their aspirations, right? I want to be honest, and then your actions don't match up with that. I want to be this, and your actions don't match up. And so I'd like to invite you to think about your actions and what you actually do. I think philosophically, if I asked everybody in here one-on-one, you'd be like, oh, I love inclusivity. Love it. It's awesome. High five, Kyle. And I would believe you. But I bet most in here may not be able to wrestle with or talk through what that even means, diversity and inclusion and multiculturalism and equity and access and some of that. And that's okay. I've been learning over the years. I'm not an expert on diversity. I'm an expert on my experiences, and what I want to do is share a few of those experiences with you today. So by the way, there's about, I see Phil, I see Devin, I see Chris. There's about 8 of you who have seen this presentation or versions of this presentation like 8 times, okay? I've tried to change it up a little bit, but you know my MO. I will always pay respect to those who came before me, and that's my mom and my dad. My father is in the middle. His father's name was José Antonio de los Reyes, or Reyes, from Spain. My grandmother, Perla Virginia Corpus, from the Philippines. So my father, Filipino-Spaniard. My father's name was Norberto Antonio Reyes. My middle name is Anthony, from Antonio. My son's name is Akoni, which is the Hawaiian version of Anthony, from Antonio. Anyway, trust me, it works, okay? So that's my father. He was an artist. He immigrated from the Philippines many years ago on an artist visa because at the time, the United States was actually trying to attract artists from all across the world to sort of diversify their art pool, if you will. My mom is on the right there. She's the oldest of 5 siblings, so 6 children. My grandmother, Lokilani Pilipi, and my grandfather, Shoichi Maeda. My grandfather, Japanese, my grandmother, Hawaiian. My mother grew up in the Big Island of Hawaii and the northern coast of the Big Island, and the actual island is called Hawaii or Hawaii, okay? And so my grandmother passed away, my grandfather passed away, my mother passed away last year. We have aunties and uncles that are still in the Big Island of Hawaii, okay? I grew up in Canoga Park, California. So if you didn't know my background, but you heard that I was the advisor for the hip hop club and the graffiti art club here at UVU, there's a reason why, okay? This is my background. I still to this day do this work, but I've changed it a little bit. I now do cultural art with a street flair, and I'll show you some of that to end the presentation today, if that's okay with you. All right? Let me just backtrack for a second. I've been at UVU for 13 years, one of my 14th year. For about 5 years, I had the chance to work as the assistant to President Holland when he first came here from 2009 to 2014. And it was an absolute privilege to work with him. And part of the privilege was, he said when he came, I still remember our first meeting. His first day was June 1st, 2009. He and I met in May of 2009. We met because there was a vice president, his name was Val Hale, and he said, Kyle, the new president, he hasn't started yet, but he wants you to meet with a prospective donor for the Latino initiative that I was running at the time. I said, great, let me meet this guy. We go and pick up Matt Holland from his house up over in Provo, and he turns around. Val is driving, Matt Holland is in the passenger seat. He turns around and kind of does one of these, just like on the seat. And if you know President Holland, that's like so him. Like he's just like, hey, tell me your story. And I was like, at first I was like, shoot, he knows about like my background. And I was like, oh, what, do I lie? No, and so I was like, what do you want to know exactly, President? And he goes, what's your journey to UVU? How did you get here? And how did you get involved with the Latino initiative? So I started telling my story. About a month later, when he called me and said, hey, would you consider applying? It's no guarantee, it's an open application, but would you consider applying to be my assistant? I'm making some changes. He said, part of the reason is I view UVU, one of our core themes needs to be inclusive. And so we started talking about that a little bit. And what I want to do right now is walk you through what UVU is doing. I've actually reversed this. Normally I start with the personal, then I go into the individual, and then we end with the institutional. I'm actually going to jump to institutional because as ambassadors of the university, whether you like it or not, you're leaders, right? You're influencers. And as ambassadors of the university, you are telling UVU's story. Well, what is UVU's story? Part of our story is the fact that we are deliberately inclusive. So what does that even mean? Let me walk through that for just a second, and then I'll end today with a lot more of the individual stuff. So 3 years ago, we started with a committee of about, 14? And then we added 20 monthly. So 14 people met weekly. We added 20 monthly. And basically, what were we doing? We were going to spend an entire academic year developing UVU's strategic inclusion plan. Why? Well, we noticed that a lot of good things were happening across campus, but they weren't necessarily connected. And they definitely weren't part of some sort of master plan. I researched for 4 months the strategic diversity plans from 42 institutions of higher education across the United States. Some of them were 2 pages, some of them were 180 pages. What I found was this: most diversity plans only focused on 2 things: racial diversity of students, and racial diversity of faculty. That's it. Their entire plan was built on that. We thought at UVU, let's be a little bit more inclusive when it comes to issues of culture. When I say multicultural, if you're honest with yourselves, most of you in here immediately think of racial diversity when I say multicultural. One of the things I teach in the School of Education, so if any of you are a major in secondary or elementary education, you'll probably take my class. One of the things I teach in there is that culture, broadly defined, includes family subculture, parental education level, language of origin, socioeconomic status, first generation status, sexual orientation, gender identity. It has to do with your religiosity, spirituality, or worldview. It has to do with the fact that did you grow up in Utah or California or Argentina, right? All of those things add to your culture, and they help you form why you view the world the way you do. So what we started to get inclusive with who we would engage on this campus for inclusion plan. These are all the folks that we visited. 2 campus-wide conversations down in center stage to review different iterations of the plan. I'm sort of flying through this because this is the boring stuff, okay? We met weekly to go over each draft of the plan. And what we came up with in the end was 4 areas. So if anybody were to ask you, oh, I heard UVU is doing this inclusive stuff, what are they focused on? I hope your reaction isn't, oh, we're just trying to get more minorities to campus. That's not the plan. The plan is focusing on equity, access, equity, and opportunity, curriculum and learning for intercultural competence, safe and supportive campus environment, and then the academic inclusivity and diversity. Let me talk about each one really briefly. Under access, equity, and opportunity, this means that UVU is a place of first choice and second chances. First choice and second chances. What does that mean? That means that we're getting a higher and higher percentage of the top students coming to UVU, as evidenced by you sitting in this room. People who had choices to go elsewhere, even scholarships to go elsewhere, but you chose UVU, a place of first choice. But also a place of second chances, meaning there are some people who may not have been as responsible or as ambitious or as on target with deadlines and whatnot, who are wondering, is there still a higher ed institution for me? We play both those roles, a community college and a university. So a broad portal of access for students in the door, and then getting to graduation. This second one was found in no other inclusion plans across the United States. Intercultural competence, what does that even mean? I'll finish with that. But basically it's, how do we develop greater awareness, understanding, and skills around culture? And all of us, employees and students, should be developing greater awareness, understanding, and skills on issues of culture. The third, safe spaces, and then role models on campus that reflect the diversity that's coming to us. Okay, our community diversity. Finally, how we deliver classes, what we deliver. Can we be inclusive in terms of the subject, the content area, and the delivery mechanisms? This is the most robust strategic inclusion plan in the state, easily, in the state of Utah. And frankly, in the nation, it's being shared across the nation as a model for these 4 areas. 2 and 4 don't show up in anybody's inclusion plan, and only part of 1 and part of 3 shows up in people's plans. So you just need to know that you're part of an institution that already has taken this more seriously than just putting it down in words. We could have easily said, as an institution, President Holland, you love inclusive? I love inclusive. Awesome. Let's just be more inclusive. We love everybody. Bam. We have an inclusion plan. It's basically inviting everybody to be more inclusive. but we're not spelling it out. Here we're spelling it out, and what are we doing? We're actually putting action steps to it. If you were to download our inclusion plan on our website, www.uvu.edu/inclusion, you would notice that every page starts with a student need, then there's a specific action step that we committed to do or invest in over the next 4 years, the person responsible for that, partners, and then a checkpoint target or a completion target for that action step. Folks, we launched this in August of 2014, this plan. In the last 2 years, we've invested $2 million in this plan. 31 action steps of the 36 we've made meaningful progress on. Okay? We just received, for the second year in a row, a national recognition for an institution committed to diversity. Maddie Hanks, my presidential intern, will be flying to Washington, D.C. at the end of September to receive the award on behalf of UVU at the National Role Models Conference. What other institutions receive these awards? Institutions that are in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. Oh, and Orem, Utah. Welcome. Okay? This document right here, I know it's very sexy. No, it's pretty plain. It's 20 pages, and that's the actual plan. That's where we get stuff done. This right here was our inclusion annual report from last year. We're in the process right now of finalizing our report from this past 15-16 year, which is almost double the size because we just have so much to cram in there. Let me just give you a sampling of some of the stuff that we worked on the last 2 years. You don't have to read through that entire thing, just pick a few bullet points. The corresponding numbers, though, are attached to the objective, the goal, and the action step. So we're mapping our actions back to the actual action plan, right? It's not sitting on a shelf somewhere. We're doing what we said we were going to do. And we're trying to deliver a more inclusive campus. So what do we mean by that in an elevator speech? UVU's inclusion plan is set up so that every student that walks on this campus feels like they have a sense of belonging, a sense of comfort, a sense of place, a sense of connection to the campus and the people on campus, and that you know, no matter what your identity or background, that we're here to champion your success and advocate for you. No matter your linguistic background, your religious background or non-religious background, your sexual orientation or gender identity, your language of origin, no matter what, UVU is committed to your success. Are you a veteran? Great. We're committed to your success. Are you an adult learner who's coming back to school after 20 years, nervous about doing higher education in the modern era? We're here for you. Are you a single parent? We're here for you. This has to be authentically inclusive, meaning it has to not just be one flavor, one brand of diversity. This has to take into account all the various things that you bring to the table. So let's brag about some of the things that we're doing at UVU. We hosted our Champions of Inclusion banquet. Was it in this room? It was probably a room across the way. Here's some of the folks that were recognized in front of our Board of Trustees and National Presidential Advisory Board for taking initiative. Notice one of our very own students being recognized with his parents. In an emotional way, Cristobal Villegas thanked his parents because of what they did for him to put him in a position to then influence this entire university. Diversity dialogues started there, okay? Students. Diversity lecture series started with students. Multicultural Student Council started with students. You have a power to enact change for inclusion on this campus. We have become the hub for Native American partnerships and outreach. We host the Governor's Native American Summit for the 4th year in a row. We're the only higher ed institution to ever host it, and we've hosted it now for the 4th year in a row, bringing 500 tribal leaders, educators, students, parents, community members together to talk about issues that affect our Native American communities. What Native American communities? Our 8 tribes and nations that are in or touch the state of Utah. 3 bands of Ute, Goshute, Shoshone-Bannock, Hopi, Laguna Acoma, Navajo. These tribes and nations, you might have learned in grade school that the Indians died off, because guess what? My kids in some classes still learn that in elementary school. That's not the case. We have 350 American Indian, Native American students walking these halls, trying to wonder if people recognize their issues, right? MLK commemoration. The gentleman who authored the I Have a Dream speech, Ambassador Andrew Young, who marched with Dr. King as his right hand, Julian Bond, who passed away not too many years ago. We had him here before he passed away. And again, marked with Dr. King as part of the inner circle. Many of you have heard about Dr. King's inner circle. It's about 5. We've had 3 of them on our campus. Women in leadership initiatives. You might recognize Dr. Susan Madsen. She's done research to advance more opportunities for women in leadership. We know, nationally, we know that women are participating in higher education at a higher rate than men. But leadership still lags behind. And so we are doing quite a few seminars, lectures, symposia to advance opportunities for women in business, politics, and education. People of the Pacific Initiative, we just hosted 500 Pacific Islander students. Utah has the 4th largest Pacific Islander population in the United States. 4th largest. Hawaii, duh. California, Washington, and Utah just passed Nevada. Vegas, for some reason, was just this mecca of my Hawaiian cousins and my Tongan and Samoan. But now, the Tongan and Samoan populations in the state of Utah have created this, where Pacific Islanders, 4th largest population in the state of Utah, in the nation, right here in the Utah. Many of you realize that we have a Barbara Barrington Jones Foundation We Care Center for low-income students, many single parents, people who need to drop their children off for an hour while they go to class. I'm going to start to fly through now the slides. I just want you to just see the volume of stuff we're doing as a university. That's not just words. This is actual positions, buildings, centers, services, stuff that we're doing to have this be a more inclusive campus. Okay? We now have 14 gender-neutral restrooms, family bathrooms, unisex bathrooms. Global Spotlight that we're launching this year is on Israel. Not taking a political stance on it, but simply saying we should probably know what's going on in the world around us. And so we're going to focus this year on Israel and all that goes with the history, the politics of that country. This is us taking some students down to the Navajo Nation for intercultural immersive teaching experiences. So this January, I'm leading a group of students. It's a 7-week experience. I'll go down every other weekend and down in northeastern Arizona, and my students will be teaching in Navajo schools down there to understand what it's like to teach in a different cultural context. Utah's first World Languages Fair. Utah is a hub of dual language immersion, Chinese immersion in elementary school, Spanish, German, Portuguese. And we host the only dual language fairs, world language fairs for 4th and 6th graders. New Veterans Center. We cut the ribbon in January. New emphasis in the last 2 years on getting informed about sexual violence awareness. Okay? Some of you might recognize past student body president Tyler Berklasich there, who was very much an integral part of leading this initiative. Expanded Safe Zone training. We've quadrupled the number of employees who were Safe Zone trained this last year. We have Karen Deischer, who's in our LGBT Student Services Center as a program coordinator. And we have a committee now on LGBTQ+ issues. And again, we've made a very deliberate stand, even in a fairly conservative community. Ecumenical Reflection Center for those who self-identify with the LDS faith. There's a, right near campus, next to campus, very, very close to campus, there's an institute, an Orem Institute. And that's great for those who self-identify with that faith group. But for those who don't, is there a place to meditate, reflect, ponder? And we do now in the Ecumenical Reflection Center. Okay? First Generation Initiative for the 36% of our students, roughly 13,500 students walking our halls who are the first in their families to pursue a bachelor's degree. Is there anyone in here who will be the first in your family to pursue a bachelor's degree? Holy cow. Okay? There are some things as you develop in your networking, your leadership, that you can help other folks navigate this scary institution of higher education. Some College No Degree Initiative, helping adult learners return to school. Look at that National Student Leadership Diversity Convention, led by students. Diversity Dialogues, Diversity Lecture Series, led by students. 2 national awards for our Latino Initiative. Top 5 program in the nation from Excellency in Education. Top 3 program in the state for White House Initiative. And the only higher ed institution in the whole state of Utah to get that bright spot recognition from the White House. And then 2 national recognitions, again, for the 2nd year in a row, Diversity MBA Magazine, Minority Access Incorporated. Before I move on, folks, can you just soak that in for just a second, okay? That was about 20 minutes, and I flew through a ton of stuff. But is there any question in your mind right now that UVU is at least trying to get this inclusive stuff right? Now, do we have a ways to go? Yes. We've got some stuff we've got to work on, and we're launching this year. Maddie Hanks, I mentioned, is my presidential intern. This Friday, we're launching with the Black Student Union, opening social. We're launching the first phase of an African American initiative, okay? We've got trainings that we're developing, a series of 8 modules and trainings and workshops for employees to get more understanding and more sensitive to these issues, okay? We're doing a ton of stuff. Our athletics program is investing in community engagement with diversity. Before I move on, are there any questions or comments? Probably time for 2 about what I just presented. And I expect leadership students to have opinions, so. Comments or questions? Please, Phil.
What's the next step? What are we doing now to progress?
Yeah, so our inclusion, we've laid out 8, for this coming year, 16, 17, we've laid out 8 areas where we really need to, it's not necessarily forming new initiatives, it's solidifying. Like for example, a first-gen initiative, the best one in the entire United States, taking first-gen students to completion. That initiative requires longitudinal commitments, right? So we have a new a coordinator who actually happens to be here. I think I saw Garrett Nagaishi. Garrett is a full-time position dedicated to first gen. Not too many years ago, we didn't have that position, and so we said, in order for us to make strides in this, we actually have to have positions, programming, so we got programming funding for Garrett to actually lead some operations. It's more in the spirit of that, Phil, where we've taken some existing initiatives like Some College, No Degree, 40% of our adult learners in our community not having an education, telling them to come back and finish, ramping up our women in education, women in leadership programs, and then again, raising the completion rates. Other things that we see around the corner, more specific interreligious, interworldview initiatives around the Reflection Center and the Interfaith Council, greater sophistication on safe zone training and LGBTQ+ issues, greater sophistication across the entire campus. And then really looking at more safe spaces and brave spaces. Brave spaces are those spaces, it's the same as safe space, but brave spaces basically says, I'm going to come to this center, a veterans center, to both be among people who get me, but then I'm also going to connect and bank shot to the rest of the campus because it's going to help me develop resilience to navigate the entire campus, not just stay within the Veterans Center. Okay? Any more comments? Yes?
If we have ideas or concepts or suggestions to further the initiative, who should we talk to?
Oh, please, please, please call me. Email me or Maddie Hanks. I will have my contact information on the last slide. You can also just contact Belinda or Ashley and they can put you in touch with me. But I meet with students every week, just like random students. Just, hey, I got an idea. I'm like, great, let's talk. Somebody said, Lais Rodriguez from the Prospective Student Services Office said, you have the hip hop club, the dance club, you've got the graffiti art club, but you don't have a slam poetry club. So this year she's starting a slam poetry club, and it's gonna create the third leg of our hip hop alliance. So we're gonna support one another. Slam poetry, hip hop dance, and graffiti art are all gonna support one another at UVU's Best Dance Crew, at all the different events we've got going on. So whatever ideas you've got, if I've got enough energy, which I do, we'll get some stuff done, okay? Let me move on now to a couple things. Individual. How do you become a more authentically inclusive person? That's great. Thanks, Kyle. We get it. UVU's committed. Awesome. Proud to be a part of this institution. I hope anyway, right? I hope that you're feeling a little bit of that because we're trying to actually deliver on that. But how do you become a more authentically inclusive person? And this is where the leadership thing comes in for me. I didn't say how do you become a more authentically inclusive leader. Here's my contention, and Belinda and I have talked about this. I studied educational leadership, and I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of folks who really focused on leadership, which is great, awesome. But they focused on like the power of leader, right? And I want to pull that back for a second and say, become a more authentically inclusive person, and by extension, you will influence more people. You will become naturally a more effective influencer and leader. First focus here, though. Not so much the resume or not so much the sharpness of what leadership looks like. Focus here inside, and here's what I'm talking about. Intercultural competence is measured in 3 ways. I told you I'd come back to this. What is intercultural competence? The ability to work across cultural contexts. The ability to work across cultural contexts. So if I'm from Los Angeles, which I am, and I were to step foot into Provo, Utah, which I did 20 years ago, all right, there is some things that took me a while to get to know about the culture in Provo, Utah that were different than Los Angeles, right? And vice versa if somebody were to go to LAX, fly into LAX from Provo, right, for the first time. Part of it is this. I like to look at it as 2 sides of the same coin. So go with me on this metaphor for a second. Diversity and inclusion are actually companions. Folks might say, why are you focused on diversity or why are you focused on inclusion? My argument is this. You need both. You need diversity and you need diverse voices and perspectives so that you can become aware. But the moment you start to move to try to understand people and build skills, that's where you start to become a more inclusive person. You see, diversity serves a purpose. The dialogues on diversity serve a purpose because they give you an awareness that there's other perspectives that are valid out there. That your sense of normalcy, what you call normal, is not everybody else's sense of what they consider to be normal from their majority experience. So let's walk through each of these for a second. Awareness of self first. It has to start here, folks. We can't address issues of diversity and inclusion until we address and look in the mirror on the stuff that we're carrying around. The biases, the assumptions, the perspectives we have. So I talk a lot about scripts with my students in the School of Ed. Those of you that have heard me before have heard me talk about scripts. Basically, scripts come from this. This is an artist's rendition of a brain scan. Okay? So neurons, billions of neurons you're born with. The synaptic connections between each neuron, that's where information is processed. From the time you're born, you are processing information on those synaptic connections. So let me talk about my family for just a second. My youngest is 2 years old. His name is Keave. He's a cute little stinker. Belinda, is that true? Very cute. Thank you. Looks like Michelle. So when Michelle, my partner, my wife, when she was delivering Keave at Utah Valley Regional Medical, the nurse came up and said, Mr. Reyes, we have a new program. It's not really new. I mean, you don't have to consent or anything, but we at least acknowledge that we gave you the information of this program called Skin to Skin. And basically, instead of taking the baby as soon as it's born over to the warmer to clean the baby up after you cut the umbilical cord, Mr. Reyes, we're actually going to have the baby touch your wife's skin and her upper chest. And I said, awesome. Yeah, that's great. You can check that off. You've let me know. I was like, indigenous folks have been doing this forever, so I guess where modern medicine's catching on. But the idea is, as soon as Keave was born, crying, cut the umbilical cord, boom, to Michelle's upper chest, she starts caressing his cheek and singing to him in Navajo. It's basically 1 to 10, but it's kind of like 1 is for this, 2 is for, and she's singing to him in Navajo. So what's happening in his little brain at that moment? Is he cognitive, like, oh, that's mother. She is comforting me with her caress. No. His brain is basically like, come. And all of a sudden, one little synaptic connection is made. And if he's crying and she caresses his cheek again, and then all of a sudden it goes back and forth across that same synaptic connection, it becomes a sense of comfort in his brain. That if he cries, he knows at some point somebody's going to give him comfort in the form of food, nursing, in the form of a song, my wife's voice singing in Navajo, right? Just her tone, her whole presence, her whole confidence to wrap him up. Those scripts start very young, and as we get older, I want you to think about your experiences for just a second. When we were in elementary school, we all have this experience. We tried on a new pair of clothes or a new hairdo, and we went to school and we got what? We got made fun of. Was that really only my experience? Okay, so I'm going to own this for a second. This was my experience. Michael Jackson jacket. Wow, thanks for that. Zippers on a black leather jacket and matching pants. Yeah, it was hot. I wore that to school. I got made fun of. Do you think I wanted to wear it again? No. So interestingly, bullying, every experience that we have, we're social scientists from the time we're tiny. We will test things. I'm going to do this, and my mom just yelled at me. I'm probably not going to do that again while she's around. Okay? And so we start to what? We start to have our behavior be affected by our context, our surroundings. I want to talk about something very, very serious for just a second, but it drives home the point. Okay? While my son was having Navajo songs sung to him, it's within the realm of the possible and even probable and reality that there was perhaps another baby not receiving the same treatment not too far away. And maybe that baby grew up a little bit and was actually being abused at home. What do you think is going on in the brain of that child? Or the child who failed a test and all of a sudden thought that they were pretty stupid. You see, the synaptic connections that happen between our brain from the time we were very little, whether we like it or not, they affect the way we see the world, folks. They affect the way we see the world. If we had a bad experience with one type of person, one identity group, one religion, if we had a bad experience, do you think that doesn't affect the way that we view that group? Of course it does. Own it. Be okay with it for at least for a second and then check yourself so you can get better at it and not have that affect you as much. Where do I feel safe? Where do I feel belonging? And am I college ready? Am I college material? Am I smart or am I stupid? All these synaptic connections, if not checked over time, they lead to schema, lenses, and scripts. Now, there are some of you in here like me who were privileged enough to have parents tell you you could be anything. Now, at some point, I stopped believing them because I was like, I probably am not going to play for the Los Angeles Lakers.
You're better off.
Thank you. Thank you. I believed them to a certain point, but the idea is that a script or a lens I had developed over the years, I actually viewed the world with some sense of optimism, and I still do. I still do because of that privilege. Let me talk for a second about this taboo word. Okay? Because as leaders, you have to recognize at some level that we all have it. I have it. I'll talk about my privilege in just a second. But before I do, and there's again 8 of you in here who knows the punchline on this exercise, let me ask, how many of you in here are left-handed? Left-handed only. You can raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, great. Roughly the percentage I was expecting. A few of you raised your right hand, so I don't know if I believe you. I'm just kidding. Okay, so only the left-handers can speak at this moment. Left-handers, when did you realize that you were different? Kindergarten, very early. It wasn't last year. You were like, crap. Okay, so when you were in kindergarten, like what activities had you realize that you were left-handed? Scissors, thank you. See, this is very therapeutic right now, folks. So, scissors, so what happens in that exchange? Like walk us through that scenario.
They don't work when you cut with left hand.
Yeah, they don't work. The scissors don't work. And they hurt, right? Because they pinch in a certain way, right? Have you ever tried to write on a dry erase board? Left-handers? What happens? See, it's just sign language to me now. You're just like, it just happens. You smear. Have you ever sat next to anybody by the way, if there any left-handers on this side? I don't want to ignore you. Sat next to somebody in a booth, like you're eating, and you have to cognitively like process, I need to sit somewhere where I don't bump elbows with anybody. Yeah? Oh, yeah. Let it out, bud.
Yes.
How often does that happen?
I'd say a couple times a week, probably.
Couple times a week. Interesting. Have you ever walked into a classroom and that wooden desk that everybody gets to put on to rest their arm? You feeling me on that one? Story of your life? Really?
The pattern on the oven mitt is always on the wrong side. Anyone? It's a big deal.
That's actually a new one. I need to add that to my... The pattern on the oven mitt is on the wrong side. Be strong. Be strong. You're going to get through this. Anybody else? Okay. So imagine then, left-handers, all of a sudden... And by the way, let me just add some serious tones to it. There was actually a time in boarding schools, and especially American Indian, Native American boarding schools, where they would tie your left hand behind your back so you can learn how to write right-handed, the right way. They would actually slap your hand. Back in the day when like teachers could smack people with rulers, they would smack hands. My mother, in Hawaii, they probably still do it today in Hawaii, but they smack hands, so that you can learn to write the right way. Okay? Sporting equipment, hello, left-handers. Oh, whoa, you're getting in on this. It's so annoying. What's so annoying?
Like baseball gloves
Yeah.
and softball bats and everything.
Yeah. Are you? I didn't know if there was some tears there. I was feeling that for a second. And I was like, wow, this is good. Okay. All you right-handers in the room, you know who you are. You didn't raise your hand unless you did. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Right-handers in the room, how many times have you had to process like, man, oh crap, this world is tough to live in for us right-handers? Anybody? No, really? Like none of you were sitting there with your mouse on the right hand of the keyboard? Do you even use a mouse anymore on computers? And you were like, oh, this world is made for right hand. Okay, part of privilege is you don't have to check your identity when you enter a space. Let me repeat that and let me share a few more examples. What does privilege mean? You don't have to check your identity when you enter the space. You benefit from societal norms because it is a norm to be right-handed. You benefit from it because everybody else, or the majority of the people, share that experience. And so you don't even have to process it. You don't even have to cognitively process it. Okay? What's another privilege? Bless you. English speaking. Yes.
Well, the example I thought of was on my mission I served in Italy.
Yes.
I'm a quarter Italian, so I look like the people. It was my blonde, I'm white, and my blonde white companion who could get into more doors because she was blonde and because she was American. They figured out I was American as soon as I opened my mouth when they heard my accent.
Okay.
And it was interesting that we both had white privilege, but she had slightly more because she was blonde.
Okay.
Not look like the people, and I do.
Okay, so there's all these different nuances when we talk about privilege, right? So for example, my wife, my partner Michelle, I'm going to refer to probably a couple more times. Those that know my family know that Michelle doesn't have an arm from here on down. She lost an arm in a car accident when she was 17. She was driving up from the Navajo Nation, and their van hit a horse. And the van flipped, and she was sleeping behind the driver, and hit the bottom, it just drug on, and her arm was just severed. Okay? 170 stitches, skin grafts up her back right here. Okay? So when I met her for the first time, she shook my hand with her right hand. I didn't even notice anything, and then her friend was like, oh, did you notice Michelle actually just has one arm? And I was like, nope, didn't notice, don't care. She was the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life, okay? So, thank you for the awe, I appreciate that. So, because today's our anniversary. I joke, I kid you not. Yeah, let's go. No. Belinda, I posted something on Facebook earlier today just for Michelle, so you might want to just read that and just... Maybe, no, just kidding. Okay, so Michelle, now, does she have the privilege of checking out of that experience? Meaning, can she just be like, ooh, man, I've gained empathy. I kind of know what it feels like. Let me put on my arm again and let me get back to normal life. No. She doesn't do that. Do I have the privilege? Yes. You see, I don't ever have to think, how would I do this task with just one hand? How would I do this task with just one hand? Let me go back to the elementary school experience. My father from the Philippines, he used to do impersonations for us. He used to tell us stories. He used to do little voices and stuff. I do the same now for the kids. Before they go to bed, I tell them stories. Usually I take a little, what do you call those books, Dr. Seuss book, and then I just turn it into a rap, okay? Because they all rhyme and they're all like tight, okay? And all I need is for one of my sons to lay down a beat, okay? And they're learning, because one time they're like, oh, how do you, so I was teaching them, and then I said, if you just say boots and cuts, right? You all know that? If you just say boots and cuts and boots and cuts and boots and cuts and... So my son, every time I'm about to rap a Dr. Seuss song, he's like, boots and cuts and boots and cuts. And I'm like, all right, go with it. So when I was growing up, my dad used to tuck me into bed at night. I had a full belly from eating. I would go to school the next day. I could concentrate on my work. Oh man, I was a much better student than the people next to me. Or was I? You see, the student next to me may have the night before, instead of waiting for his dad to come home and tuck him into bed and tell him stories, the student might have been hiding from his parent. The student next to me may have not had dinner the night before and came to school hungry the next day and is wondering, my stomach is growling, I can't even concentrate on my math. and is labeled a bad student and a bad person. The student the next morning is wondering, I don't even have socks that don't have holes in them, so you know what, I don't want to go to school today. Oh, that student's truant. That student's troubled. You see, what happens to us sometimes, folks, is we just need to reframe. I was privileged growing up. Racially privileged? Maybe not. Experientially privileged? Maybe. Can a religious identity be privileged in one context and not in another? Yes. Socioeconomic status? Pretty privileged wherever it is. Okay? Language. They talk about English being the currency of the world now. Okay, do you have more power and privilege? Why can't everybody else just speak English? Or why can't we be more empathetic and realize that people didn't grow up the same way you grew up? Okay? Here's my invitation. When you get exposed to difference, you can react in one of two ways. You either disengage and stop progress. And by the way, in Utah County, I just have to be upfront with you about this subculture, this sort of passive aggressiveness that permeates. When people come from outside of the state of Utah, sometimes they recognize, like, everybody's really nice, but I can't tell if they're genuine. Like, they're so nice. I just don't know what's going on here. Part of that is anytime there's anything controversial or anything that makes us feel uncomfortable at all, we retreat. Be honest with yourselves. I've done it myself. Be honest with yourselves. If it's a topic that makes us feel uncomfortable, we're like, oh, let me get back to comfort as soon as possible, and let me not engage that topic. Part of getting more interculturally competent is engaging and learning about difference and getting more comfortable with the fact that sometimes new and different things are uncomfortable, and that's okay. Because that's where understanding takes place, and that moves us to the second part. That coin is now flipping. It's not just diversity for diversity's sake. You're actually becoming a more inclusive person when you're engaging. If you don't engage, then everybody starts to fight and throw darts at each other about, oh, why are we talking about diversity? Why can't these people let it go? Why can't those people let it go? Why can't these people understand our experience? Why can't those people? We're in 2016. Why are we still talking about blah, blah, blah? That's diversity by itself. Until we move towards inclusion, trying to understand one another, where each other's coming from, we're going to only stay there. Okay, we're not going to move to be inclusive people. So understanding of others' perspectives. I work a lot on borderland identity issues right now. What is a borderland identity? That means that you have competing identities. All right? Indigenous students who grew up on the Navajo reservation who come up here and they're sort of wondering, okay, I learned one way of thinking of the world culturally, and now I'm in a new space. There's some cultural disequilibrium there. Some students who are of a certain predominant faith group who self-identify as LGBTQ, who want to see how those identities jive or don't jive. Urban artists, street artists, graffiti artists, who basically say, I think I'm an artist, but everybody's told me I'm a bad person. I'm a vandal. So where do I belong, right? Borderland identities. Where's your sense of place, belonging, authenticity? Some of you already know about this program, but I come back to it all the time because this is where a lot of the empathy started for me. Hidden Voices was a project, and I'm only going to treat it very quickly because I've only got 10 minutes left or 8 minutes left. Hidden Voices is a project we did here at UVU where we worked with graffiti artists in the local community from Provo, Alpine, and Nebo districts. If they had a record with Provo district courts or any of the district courts locally, we wanted to work with them for graffiti art, a record for graffiti art. So we worked with them for a year. We gave them spray cans, canvases donated. We went to court with them if they had to show up in court. We hooked them up with mentors, faculty mentors, and graduate student mentors from other colleges, University of Utah, BYU, and here. And we said, learn to tell your story, even if it's visually. Learn to tell your story, because if you don't become an author of your story, if you don't get the education to become an author of your story, someone's going to tell your story for you, and it's going to be wrong. So get educated, get the words, and learn to tell your own story. Visually first. So we got them together. We gave them video cameras to do their own documentary, Why Do I Write? They worked with composition faculty to come up with their own artist statements. And then they prepped the museum. And they hung their pieces around this concept of hidden voices. Why is my voice hidden from society? Why do I feel like I have to claim a public space to have my voice heard? Right? So they designed their own flyers. And on the opening night, in 2011, on the opening night, I gave them each white ties, black collared shirts, exhibitor badges that they hung right here. If you've ever exhibited in a museum of art, you have to distinguish who's the artist that night. So you have exhibitor badges. I gave them each that. These 8 artists with their families came, and my kids are in the back climbing around. And I said, be proud of the work you did tonight. You're exhibiting in a museum of art, a legitimate museum of art that just finished the Da Vinci exhibit. In 2010, December, they just finished Da Vinci, and now was Hidden Voices graffiti at the Woodbury Museum of Art in the University Mall, now University Place. I asked them, how many people are you going to think come tonight? They said, maybe 100, right? Because we have food for 100 people, I think, from P.F. Chang's donated, right? From down below of University Place there. I said, look, whoever comes or doesn't come, stand proudly next to your work. And if they ask you about your work, don't be like, they say, oh, this is beautiful. What has inspired this? And you're like, oh, I don't know. It's just colors and stuff. Like, you got to tell them. You got to say, this is the inspiration behind this. And stand proudly and speak up and articulate. And so we practice with them, right? So Nicolás Solís and his grandmother and grandfather, they came. And in Spanish, I speak Spanish. And in Spanish, she puts her hands on my cheeks and says, I'm so proud of my Nicolás or my Nikki. Jonathan, Word is Born. He had help with this one from one of our more seasoned artists. His artist statement to the left, conundrum. He tagged graffiti and then said on the left side, this is art. On the right side, it's demonic. You're a vandal. You're a bad person. He felt torn because he thinks he's an artist, but nobody's recognizing him as such. Serenity. He tagged his street name 100 times, came over the top and said, I'm going to leave the chaos of my past life because I found my voice. It's education, but I'm still going to be an artist forever. Folks, there's some powerful narratives going on here from people that the rest of the community had written off. This one's called Venom. I'm going to spray back the venom that people are spewing at me because why? I have the power now. With my art ability, I'm going to tell my story. Look at the face of the youngster next to this guy. For his whole life, he was told, don't you be like this guy. For his whole life, he was told, do other things, don't make decisions. And guess what? That night, we were celebrating him. And President Holland showed up and handed out admissions letters to UVU for all 8 artists and 2 scholarship letters for 2 of the artists. And 540 people came that night. And we were flipping scripts not only for the artists and not only for the community, but for the young people who were wondering, they look like me. Can I be like that one day? Well, guess what? They just saw that somebody that looks like them is on a path to college. 2 years ago, we graduated our first one. One transferred to the University of Utah for architecture. One, after his associate's degree, left because he was making a job for $60,000, poor guy. That was a joke. And then one, unfortunately, as an adult, made some bad decisions and was tried and is locked up. It's not always a perfect ending on these things. But I want you to know some things that we learned from this. Here's how I approach education now, or I approach leadership influence. CARE approach. Connection, authenticity, relevance, and empathy. I don't have enough time to go through each of these. I talk to educators about the CARE approach. I talk to advisors. I talk to faculty members. But you as student leaders, let me just tell you this. You have to ask yourselves questions. Are you deliberately creating connections for yourself and for people around you to connect? Are you asking somebody to subtract who they are before they can be successful with you? Or are you embracing who they are and adding to that, adding value to what they already bring, their strengths, letting them be authentic? Is the work that you're doing, that you're asking people to do as a leader, does it make sense to them in their world of relevance? And is your heart growing along the way? And I don't know. And nobody can ever tell you whether or not your heart's growing along the way. But I bet you, 14 years into this here at UVU, I bet you that my heart is growing a little bit. Because I've worked with thousands of students in the classroom and outside the classroom, and I've listened to them and I've learned from them. I don't think I'm a better leader. I think I'm a better person for that, and hopefully that's translated to some leadership. Let me close now with one of the ways that I've tried to build bridges in my personal life on these issues. Why am I so passionate about this? Let me just show you 6 reasons. So Michelle, every picture that you'll see of her will always cover her left arm. It comes to right here. When she was having our first child, she wondered, and she would actually cry, wondering, I wonder if they're going to be okay with the fact that I'm only going to change the diaper here with one hand and this and that. My kids learn head, shoulders, knees, and toes with one hand, okay? And then all of a sudden I blew their mind when I was like, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, right? And Kekoa, Ikaika, Yosepa, Kaimi, Hakoni, Keawe. Did I tell you Keawe was cute? The little one at the top. 6 reasons why I'm passionate about intercultural competence. You see, my kids are Hawaiian, Filipino, Japanese, Spaniard, Navajo, and Mongolian. They're living in Utah County. I love it. I love it. They're trying to, just like my students, they're also different, right? They're also different and have unique needs, and we're trying to figure that out right now as parents. My boys do Native American hoop dancing at the UVU powwow here. That's them. I don't know if have any of you ever seen the hoop dance before? Okay, if you haven't, I invite you to the Native American powwow here at UVU. Get some culture, okay? Get some new lenses and new contexts. Yes, that's Keawe over there. First time performing hoop this last year at the Native American powwow. He only had one hoop, and actually he just passed it through his body once and then put it back out and just went like this the whole time. But boys got rhythm, okay? All right, I made sure of that. I was like, stay on beat, come on now, you know? All right, there's my daughter, Kaimi Haleakua. She's a first grader at Vineyard Elementary. All four of my oldest are at Vineyard Elementary. These are boxes I made for them. They all are taggers now. They're all artists. They all have sketchbooks and art boxes. I made each one of them one of these boxes with their names and filled it with just little, Sharpie markers and scissors, whatnot. This is them working at the table on their art stuff. We have like drawing hour together, okay, where we just draw. Right now, my kids and I are working on the first ever Polynesian super team for like Marvel. So we're doing, it's called P7, Pacifica 7, and each one of them has their own like identities and powers, and it's awesome. All right? Because I'm kind of like a Comic-Con nerd, right, Phil Varney? Yes. Thank you. Are you going I maybe, yeah. Okay, let's talk afterwards, all right? So justice, says justice. I did this piece 4 years ago for the Hidden Voices exhibit. I'm going to flip it upside down, and it'll still say justice. Okay? This is the work I do now. I just try to have people reframe, rethink how they view the world. And so now what do? I do workshops for youth who everybody else has given up on. Sometimes they're called troubled youth. Sometimes they're called juvenile justice system youth. Sometimes they're called whatever, boys' homes, usually young men. But I do workshops now. What do the workshops entail? I go and I take some shoes and I say, look, a part of you always walks with you. You've got to walk in multiple worlds. Take your story with you wherever you go. Native American youth, when you step off the Navajo Nation, take your story with you in terms of your shoes. Walk in multiple worlds. So I start doing shoe art. And now I tell stories of my Hawaiian ancestry through shoes. So this is the demigod Maui and the hook. Many of you have seen Polynesians wear a hook. It's connected to stories of Maui that's throughout all of the Polynesian islands and even the Philippines, of this demigod that brought the islands together, that captured the sun and made it so that the days are longer in the South Pacific. First wave, paying homage to Maori and Hawaiian ancestors. I pay honor to those who were the first bridge builders of the island people. Those first people who went out in canoes and said, I'm going to go gather resources and then bring it back. Some of you may have attended something last night with President Holland. Some of you may have not. But last night at a speech he gave, he talked about canoes going out and coming back. This is our philosophy at UVU. You get an education you left someplace to come here to get education, you take it back to help your community, help people. All right? Then Michelle, she saw me doing a whole bunch of shoes for people. She's like, I want a pair of shoes. I'm like, all right, I know you're not going to wear Vans. She goes, all right. So she bought at Burlington Coat Factory for $9 a pair of heels. And she goes, I just want to wear it on special occasions. I said, all right. So I did a pair of heels for her. It says KM on one side and MR, Michelle Reyes, and then Kyle and Michelle. And I did that with one Sharpie marker, and you can't make mistakes on heels because you can't erase. It's a gloss finish, right? You can't sketch it out. So that was all just go with the flow. Then my daughter, last year, before kindergarten, she was scared to go to kindergarten. She wouldn't go, and so I made a deal with her. I'm like, Kaimi, if you go to school for 5 days in a row, Daddy's going to make you a pair of shoes. And she's like, oh, okay. So I said, what do you want on the shoes? She said, a butterfly. I'm like, all right. What color? Turquoise, because that's mommy's favorite color, from the turquoise stone of the Navajo people. And I said, what else? Purple. Why? And this is exactly how she said it. Because it's purplicious. And I'm like, is that Napoleon Dynamite right there? Like, that's purplicious. So I get a call. I'm at a conference, and Michelle said, hey, Ka'imi went for the 5th day in a row. And I'm like, all right. So I go to Walmart. I don't get her like nice shoes. I get her like the $7 like Faded Glory ones. And if anybody's wearing Faded Glory, give me some, okay? So Faded Glory shoes, $7.67. And then I turned them into this. And the middle is the butterfly. And then the wings come out. So when she's looking at them, she's looking down at the butterfly. And all she has to do is sort of open her feet like that. And she can see the butterfly middle. All right? And here's where I talk to my daughter. I said, sweetheart, do you know what the patterns mean right here? Do you know what these patterns mean? That's a spear tip of the Hawaiian people. You see that right there? That's a spear tip. That means that a bunch of strong women came before you. Whenever you get nervous, Ka'imi, you look down at your shoes and you remember your mom, you remember Grandma Annette, you remember Grandma Delphine, Great-Grandma Perla, Great-Grandma Rose, and I start naming all these women in her life, and I said, they did hard things, sweetheart. And you can do hard things, okay? And if anybody's messing with you at school, you just let your brothers know, okay? You let Kekoa know, you let Ikaika, and you let Usepa know that there are people messing with you, okay? So then it got crazy. My mother-in-law, I know, trust me. I just told Chris Coles that I have 7 pairs waiting for me on my home office from folks across campus, folks like Victor Narsimulu and Barney Nye. And, this I did for my mother-in-law down in the Navajo Nation. I researched rug patterns, and I did a pair of wedges. Now, I didn't even know what a wedge was, right? And I said to Michelle, I'm like, oh, last time I did a pair of heels, and she's like, heels? Like, these are wedges. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay. So I researched out the Ganado red pattern from Ganado, Arizona, where I'm taking my students down for student teaching in January. And so I did this pair for her mother. So I totally scored me some points with mother-in-law, you know. Then I started getting crazy with cleats. My nieces, ever since I did this pair for them, they're like Alex Morgan. They're just scoring like crazy. Carly Lloyd. They're always Instagramming like, oh, I just scored another goal with my magic cleats, Uncle. So, and then I did one. I think only a few people know about this story, but I did one for the person who's the voice of Maui in the upcoming movie Moana, and that's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Size 14, clean whites. We sent a friend of mine, Jacob Fitisemanu, and I. Jacob did Samoan heritage genealogy of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He actually did the whole genealogy. Because, you know, in Utah we got some access to some records, you know. So he did some stuff. And he scrolled it up, and he sent it in a tube, and I sent the shoes with it to say, as you prepare for your role, we want you to have some authenticity coming into this role of Maui. And so that was in December. That pair, size 14, it tells the whole story of Maui. The sun, the hook, the islands coming up that it was fished up. I'll end on this slide right here because I'm way over time. This I call 3 canoes, and this is our responsibility as people, as leaders. I propose that we're always in the middle canoe. People always came before us. They've always done. Every idea you have is not novel. Sorry. Okay? Somebody probably had an idea before you, but it's what you do with that idea, right? And then there's people coming behind you, your students, maybe children in some cases, other people around you. There's a sense of responsibility both ways. And I tell my kids, I don't care if it's the Hawaiian side of the family or the Navajo side of the family. We don't really care what you do in terms of, being Hawaiian enough or being Filipino enough or being Navajo enough. You find your passion, you find what you're fighting for, and therein you find your authenticity. Let me say that again. You find your passion, you find what you're fighting for, and therein lies your authenticity. Do you think people on a daily basis look at me and say, I wonder if Kyle's Filipino enough here at UVU? I wonder if he's Hawaiian enough. At one point, I actually was concerned about stuff like that as part of cultural identity. But now, I advocate for inclusion, and hopefully people realize I'm authentically in, right? Both feet, I'm in. And so with that, here's my email address if you want to connect, if you want to reach out and just meet to talk about future or whatever. Like I said, I have students I meet with all the time. Folks, this matters to me on a deeply personal level. Because why? You saw my 6 kids? Well, some of you are going to be influencing my kids at some level. At some level, one of you will touch their lives. And I would hope that from now until that moment when you interact with my kids, that you've grown a little bit interculturally, that you recognize the broad definition of what culture is, that you help to appreciate differences that people bring to your lives. And I argue, and I close with this, I argue, don't focus so much on whether or not you're being a good leader. Focus on whether or not you're being a good person by becoming more interculturally competent. Thank you so much.